Okay. Looks like we're recording. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order and I will start with roll call. It looks like, let's see, John Ring, Amy Moyer, well, I'll just go through the people I see. Clyde Church, Jody Shattuck McNally, Selwyn White Skunk, Brett Wolk. Are those all of the Forest Health Council members on here? Did I miss anyone? All right, great. I believe to the best of my knowledge that we have a quorum today. Courtney sent out the meeting minutes from June 10th. Did anyone have any adjustments to make on those or any questions about those? Nope. Okay.
questions.
Can I get a motion to approve those minutes then?
So moved.
All right. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor to approve those meeting minutes? Say
Aye.
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 All right, anyone opposed? Cool, great, thank you very much. All right, so today's discussion, we've got two very exciting topics. We got big updates on both of the kind of key things that we've been focusing on in this committee for the past couple of months. First, we're going to start off with a discussion on the Colorado Forest Resilience Planning Guide. Since we last met, we've done a couple of focus groups for those. So Laura is here to give us an update and we can have a little discussion on that. And then after that, I'll hand it over to our forest tracker team and we're going to hear an update about that and talk a little bit about how we foresee Forest Health Council engagement in the future with that. So, Laura, if you would like to get us started.
Sure, thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. Laura Hickey, for those of you I haven't met yet, I am supporting the smaller subgroup of the Leveraging Resources Committee in development of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. We're kind of wrapping up our outreach phase. We're moving into the development phase. And following that is going to be full council review, just to give you an overview of kind of the whole development process. In our outreach, like Katie mentioned, we hosted 2 focus groups. We had great attendance from those. We are conducting 3 one-on-one interviews, one with a Forest Health Council member, one with CPW, and one with a representative who is facilitating the Colorado Outdoor Strategy development process. So I believe that's between CPW and GOCO, and it's kind of a statewide direction on recreation and conservation. So we'll talk about how that kind of effort overlaps with this planning guide. And we launched a survey that's been running for the past week about to really present a general outline, a framework that follows 3 major steps. The first being identifying the problem and gathering partners. The second, excuse me, the second being that planning stage, that collaborative planning, and the last being leveraging resources. So that kind of outlines the outreach we've done. We have got a lot of different perspectives in that. So from place-based forest collaboratives, a lot of watershed-focused folks, some wildlife and recreation, and then some community wildfire planning folks as well. That's just a small subset, I think. So really pleased with who we touched base with, and I have a few kind of preliminary takeaways. I'll prepare a fuller report of outreach takeaways and how those are gonna, and those will help us kind of jump into development in the coming weeks. But overall, what we heard was our last step, leveraging resources, should be throughout the whole thing. So our framework will look a little bit different than what we presented initially. That forest health and wildfire mitigation are very much one and the same when it comes to planning and for resilience in Colorado. We heard that there's a lot of interest to moving from fragmented kind of smaller acts of forest management and kind of coordinating at a higher level. And some of the major challenge around that is prioritizing at a large scale and looking for ways to identify overlaps and leverage the work that's already been done on smaller scales. So I think that will be our key goal with development, is making sure we are setting folks up to understand what do they need to consider about leveraging resources every step of the way, combined with how can these collaboratives and groups that already organically meet and network work at a larger scale together and identify kind of what's in the scope of the larger scale versus what remains in their scope at a smaller scale. That's a very preliminary like takeaway from all the outreach. So any questions about the outreach process, what we've heard, any reactions to how the guide development is going?
I have a quick question, Laura. I was wondering how the survey is coming along, if you've gotten many responses to that.
Not a ton, about 10. I think I was actually going to send an email out to suggest, I had to, CPW needed to reschedule their one-on-one to Friday. So I was going to reach out to the smaller group and suggest keeping it open and doing kind of another push today, just until Friday. But the results back from the survey are all people. It seems like people spent quite a bit of time on it, and the challenges that we heard overlap in the focus group overlap with what kind of people answered in the survey as well. So it's reassuring that seems like we're capturing the commonalities.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think if we can extend it further, that would be not a bad idea. I know I didn't get it out to the Forest Collaboratives Network until very late last week because life caught up to me. So
that's okay. Cool. I'll plan on sending another push out today then for that. And I saw a thumbs up from Brett, so I'll take that as the go ahead.
Cool. And I'm curious if anyone else on the committee has like an audience that they might be able to push it out to as well. I know the core team has kind of hit a couple of groups, but if there are other networks that we can reach from this committee, I don't think that would be a terrible idea.
If you can send it to me, I'll send it to our OEM who's been working with all the watersheds and the fire sheds. I'm sure it might be some overlap, but I'll send it out to my staff to kind of see if they will kind of send that out. It might be repetitive, but it might be a good reminder. And could you send it to all us again? I can't remember if I have or not. It's just, I don't know. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, did I say that or not? So yeah, if you send that to me,
Absolutely.
I'll get that done tonight.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Jody. And we kind of have a rule of thumb that somebody has to see something 4 times before they probably are like, oh, actually, that does sound interesting. So the more the better in that regard.
Especially if it's a survey.
Yeah, Laura, are you going to send it to the whole committee? Because it would be nice to send it to the CWCB to maybe send to the roundtables if they haven't already gotten it, or again, maybe put it in folks' inbox in another way as a good reminder.
Yeah, I can get it out to the full council. I'm not sure. I think Courtney had sent it last time, but I'm not sure if is she out of office this week? for today?
I think she's just out today, so I think if we send her something, she could probably get to it later this week.
Um,
Yeah, I think the other one to copy is US Forest Service by Forest. Their comments are, well, the CFLRPs are pulling together the multiple collaboratives to develop a landscape plan that is
Mhm.
both federal and private cross-border. So I think there's some stakeholders in there that, or at least some workers that have been doing a lot of stuff, and just let them know what we're up to.
Did you have a specific contact in mind, Clyde, or anyone from this group regarding CFLRPs?
I was going to pass it on to the San Juan National Forest Ranger.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and Laura, I think I have contact info for all of the US Forest Service partnership coordinators, so I could send an email to them as well.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everyone's willingness to just step up right there. That's really great. I think, yeah, if we can just keep pushing this out. Surveys are definitely hard to get responses to, but it sounds like people are being thoughtful when they do respond, so that's what matters. Awesome. Any other questions, comments, ideas sparked from Laura's presentation?
If I may interject, sorry I am late to the meeting. Just wanted to briefly introduce myself. I'm Anson Call. I'm a postdoc spatial analyst at CFRI, and I was invited to this meeting by Brett because I understand he'll be talking about the forest tracker a little bit.
Yes, that is a perfect transition because that is our next topic on the agenda. So yeah, I will let Brett go ahead and take it away. And yeah, if there's anyone else, Brett, who you want to invite to introduce themselves or anything like that, please take the reins.
Right. I guess the reins are mine. Yeah, well, I think the only other person who's not a council member is Joe Lavarini, with National Forest Foundation there. So awesome to have you here, Joe. And then, yeah, Rebecca and Stephanie, they'll you can say something if you want. Your names are on the slides. I'll introduce you. Why don't you say hi, Rebecca? You want to go first?
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm a GIS analyst with Colorado State Forest Service, and I've been working on the forest tracker with Brett and Stephanie.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Mueller. I'm a spatial analyst with the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute, and I've been working on this and the original one, so trying to improve what we send out this time around.
Great. Well, I have a short presentation just to get everyone up to speed. And then we have a draft forest tracker dashboard and data and maps and numbers. And so I was going to show it, and we're hoping to kind of get some feedback from you all. The hope is that we will have a more polished and I don't know if it'll be fully public, but spend a lot of time in the end of July in our full Forest Health Council meeting and kind of a bigger release, at least to the council at that point. So this is kind of get some initial feedback from you. You all can see my presentation slides.
Looks good to me.
Excellent. It's much better than looking at like my calendar or whatever else I have. I'm closing. So yeah, thanks for being here. Rebecca and Stephanie introduced themselves. The other core member of our team is Nick Kotlinski with the State Forest Service as well. He's out today, but has been leading the charge with us throughout the process. So a little background. dashboard preview and feedback. And then as Katie mentioned, start thinking about how as a Forest Health Council and an official body that reports to the state legislature and governor, how we want to be affiliated and use this data in the tracker. So I don't think we need to do too much of the why, right? These issues are cross-boundary, but the second bullet point is there's a need to make these forest management activities transparent and more widely available in order to foster that learning and improve forest management outcomes. And a lot of things we were just talking about in the Forest Resilience Planning Guide in the previous part of our meeting. The other important part is research, and experience shows that this knowing what other people are doing helps. And then sort of it's fundamental data for this committee to be able to better leverage resources. Having a transparent way to track where all the management is happening lets us know where the resources are and are not going. So I think that's why it really fits well with this committee. Just sort of a reminder where we've been. CFRI started the first interagency fuel treatment database in 2017. And then we updated it in 2022. Again, these were PDF reports. There was no online map. We shared the data with people who wanted it, but it was not very widely available for a variety of reasons. Super excited to join forces with the State Forest Service and develop now the Colorado Forest Tracker that's been in the works for probably close to 2 years now. I don't know. It's been a while since we first started conversations. So transform our PDF report and hidden data into an online public thing. The audience for this is the Forest Health Council itself, and then who we report to, the state legislature and governor's office, as well as a lot of the forest and fire management practitioners, right, across all people working in this space. So not just the agencies, but also those community connected partners. Research scientists have been one of our biggest users of the data of those previous iterations for all kinds of uses that we never imagined when we developed this. So that's been a huge benefit as well to just continue that learning. And then also communities and other people who are interested in this and want to communicate about what's happening. I think I've already said all this. Provide transparent and comprehensive resource. One thing to highlight is that second paragraph is that this data will be integrated with the State Forest Service Colorado Forest Atlas. And that's where there is a ton of amazing data on layers about where is the wildland urban interface, where are insect and disease happening, where are wildfires happening, all these other things. All the risk assessments at the statewide level. So we have developed a standalone Forest Tracker dashboard, but then the data hosted in the dashboard will also be available to look at with all those other layers. So that's kind of what we're looking at as the permanent home and where you can find all this stuff. What's in it? Only completed projects. So we're not taking planned or draft projects, but only things that have been reported as completed. Woody vegetation management activities, so that includes trees, but also shrubs and other woody vegetation as best as we can capture that. And that also includes prescribed fire. So it's not just humans or machines managing forests and woody vegetation, but also how we're doing prescribed fire. There's some technicalities. What is reported as prescribed fire is going to go in the tracker. What is reported as wildfire is not. Sometimes we find out the federal agencies especially count wildfires as prescribed fires and vice versa. So that's been interesting. The activity type, location, and acres managed. And then you can see the years completed. For the federal and state data, we have compiled data since the year 2000 through December of 2023. Whether there's a fading record, right? There's less data the further you go back in time. And so how complete the data is and what we're going to present to the public is something also would be good to have your feedback on. But that's what we've been focusing on. And then attached to all that is the agency that oversaw the implementation of the management and the funding source. So that's the like core information that we're trying to just distill down and make sure is included. If you don't have this information, then we're not putting the data in the forest tracker. So there is some information out there that people are sending us just a polygon or a point with some of the information and it's incomplete. And that's isn't meeting our criteria. The vast majority of the information out there we're finding does meet this criteria. So it's very little that is being excluded, but there is some. Was not included. Non-woody vegetation, again, planned. The data will be continuously updated. It's not continuously updated, so we'll plan to update it annually. As I mentioned, point data, and then individual urban tree management. So what's the line between an urban tree and not, right? Defensible space, community forest management, so larger areas within communities. If it meets those two criteria, labeled A and A, because they're both so important, I didn't put a B. Sorry, but you know, if it involves woody vegetation and it's mapped with all the associated data, yeah, let's know about it. Let's put it on there. So that's sort of where we're headed, what's included, what's not. Our more detailed timeline, again, in 2023 and in 2024, we're developing the forest tracker, spending all the time processing the data. I'm doing all the talking today, but Rebecca and Stephanie do all of the hard work with this one and are the data masters. And then later this year, potentially as early as July, but maybe a little bit later, we'll release the URL and the data to the public so anyone can access it. And then, as I'll show in a minute, right now it is just state and federal data that we can download from systems or collect from state agencies. We have reached out to try and gather other local data from counties, fire protection districts, nonprofits, other community folks. I would think a lot of things that National Forest Foundation has their hands in. But that data is not going to be included in the first release. We just want to make sure that we get more complete data and also to share the data that we have to see what kind of overlap is out there with the people on the ground. So that's sort of the timeline as an initial release with the state and federal data, and then we'll work to incorporate other local data and fill in more gaps later. And I think I just have one or two more slides, so I'll go that and then I'll get to you, Clyde. See your hand there. So late summer, this is what we're releasing is open access to all the data, the dashboard, and then as I mentioned on the Forest Atlas. And then something else we're working on is analysis investigating some outcome measures of forest management. So not just releasing the data, but contextualizing it. That will probably come later. So we'll probably release the data with the basic numbers and then build analysis into it as we move forward. So I went through this state and federal data, other partner data not currently included. And there is the full team. Also acknowledge Amanda West Fordham, who has also had a very important role helping develop this. Aaron Green with the State Forest Service has been in and out as well the last couple of years. So that's all I had. And now maybe if there's any fundamental questions on what it is we're doing and why, and then I'll pull up the dashboard. Go ahead, Clyde.
I was just going to say that several of the counties, I know La Plata is one of them, have a graphical database already of what's happened. And I think it includes what's planned, but I'm not sure. So when you're ready for it next year or, you know, late next year sometime, we can help with that from a county standpoint.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we did in the fall of 2023, we did a big outreach to those more local partners and sent it out. And I think you did forward it on to folks. So we have some of that data. But there's a lot of people to reach out to across the state with that, so we decided to focus on the federal and state data right now, and then we will reach out again.
Yeah.
when we're ready to collect more of that local.
Good job, good job.
Any other questions or comments, or are you ready to see what we're doing? All right. Everyone still see my screen? See the dashboard?
Yep.
There it is. So
Yay.
again, this is draft. We could maybe on a very individual basis share the URL, but it actually has a login and permissions and stuff and would be hard to share right now. So this is, don't write down any of these numbers and share them widely, I think is the message. But they're pretty close to what's going to be what we release. It's not too far off. So just some orientation at the top. Right now, there's kind of this home screen, a learn more that will take you back to our regular website page that has more information. And then the data viewer. And then on the far right, there's a button for downloading the data. This doesn't work right now, but you can see that it will, that's our plan, is to put it there so everyone can just download the data and do what they want with it and use it for other analysis or other purposes. These are some of the big numbers, and we're curious if these are the right numbers or not. I'll show you what some other options are in a minute. But in the last 23 years, we've recorded 1.5 million acres of woody vegetation management, forest and shrub management in Colorado. That's out of 22,000 activities. And the footprint acres are a little different. And we've talked about this when we've had presentations from the California treatment database and other things with this committee. Any acre of land, some of them have had multiple activities over the years, right? You do a thinning once, come back 10 years later, you do another activity. Maybe the management with the trees is recorded differently than the management with the shrubs or the other fuels or vegetation that's out there. So each acre can have multiple activities on it. What the footprint acres is all that smushed down to just what is a geographic footprint that we have managed something on that footprint. So there's about 500,000 acres where there's had multiple activities have been recorded over the last 23 years is what that's indicating. So when people ask, how many acres have we managed? What is our target? What are we doing? There's multiple ways to answer that question. And so we're trying to give those in simplified terms. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Of course, you know how excited I am about this, but I had a quick question because this was something that I was asked last week. Was do we have any idea how much acreage I mean, I think I know the answer, but with all of you and this work that you've been doing, having an idea of number one, how many acres we do need to treat, which I know is a complicated question. And number two, do we know kind of that critical watershed area of acres needed to be treated, whether they've been treated once or twice? Because I think those are two different kind of questions. There's, you know, the whole range, but then there's these critical areas, and I didn't know if you had any of those answers from this work. And if you don't, that's okay. We were asked that question, and so I think those are some of the information people are looking. Like, we keep saying we need to do more work, but you know, they're saying, well, how much more work is there? And then what's the total cost, which I know varies. So I'm just curious about that, if you wouldn't mind. I don't know if that's okay to ask that at this point, but since you brought up how much we've done, I'm just curious.
That is a great question. And anyone who tells you with certainty they know the answer, I would not trust very much. So yes, there is a lot of ways, there's a lot of science to inform that though. I think what the Forest Tracker is trying to do is answer that first part of what have we done? in a transparent way so that we can then develop the answer to all the questions you're asking depends on what are your goals and objectives, right? Are you trying to protect the watershed? Are you trying to protect just the homes? Are you trying to manage for improved wildlife habitat? What are you trying to do? People are always trying to do a combination of those, right? But the answer is going to differ if you're trying to just protect for water quality for drinking water versus protecting homes and buildings and structures, right? So I think that would be my short answer for right now.
So is there a ballpark like 100 million? I mean, we could say the whole state really, but I'm just curious if there's even just a ballpark.
No, I forget the number, maybe Rebecca or someone else remembers, the 2020 State Forest Service Action Plan said if we were to manage the top 10% of forest acres in their statewide risk assessment, and what would that number look like? The number I remember is they calculated it would cost $4.2 billion or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But that is still just, what's the top 10%? Does that solve our problem or not? Right? Or does that help improve our forests? That question is not answered by just doing the top 10%. We may only need to do 6%. We may need to do more. It's going to differ everywhere. So
I appreciate it. Thank you, Brett.
yep.
Brett, this is Amy. I'll just quickly make this point so you can keep going, but I did have maybe a similar thought as Commissioner Shattuck McNally of trying to put some of these numbers in context of something, whether it's the line of thinking that the commissioner was just going down, or whether it's the line of thinking of here's the forested acres in Colorado. And any of those is probably a really difficult choice, but just to provide my initial reaction was also just thinking of, okay, when you look at the 1.5 or 1.1, what is that in the grand scheme of things? And for the more average person or somebody who isn't super engrossed in forest management that still might land here, something along those lines could be helpful. So I'll just leave it there.
Thanks. This is all great. And this is why I invited Anson from CFRI to be on the call, because that's what Anson and Stephanie and I and some other folks with State Forest Service are going to be working on. And so you guys are asking great questions. I think there's a lot more to this that I haven't showed. So this was in the presentation, Explore Data Viewer. I want to draw this attention. This first paragraph says State Forest Service and CRA are doing this. But we have this sentence up there. I don't know if you can see it. It says this project is supported by the Colorado Forest Health Council and relies on voluntary data submissions for agencies and communities across the state. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think it should say supported. The Health Council hasn't provided any funding or anything, so we need to clarify that language. But that's something at the end of this for you all to think about. What should that sentence say, if anything? Our last two annual reports do not mention the forest tracker at all or a statewide database. So it is not an official recommendation or request or anything in our current materials. Oops. All right, launch data viewer. Here it is. Here is more detail. So just some orientation up here. You can see the totals of canopy management, surface management, fire management, and reforestation. So what we're tracking in the forest tracker is all woody vegetation management activities. That includes canopy management is in the tree canopy if we're intentionally altering the taller trees, the dominant trees on the landscape. Surface management is if we're intentionally managing things under the tallest trees on the landscape. So tree regeneration, smaller trees, shrubs, things like that. And then the fire management, still playing around with the wording here so it's clear, but this is prescribed fire and intentionally managed fire, not managed wildfires. And then reforestation as well. So again, it's not just where are we removing trees and woody vegetation, but where are we trying to actively plant and reforest as well. So we can get a picture of how we are changing the dynamics. So that's sort of the big numbers for the whole state. And if you add all these up, this adds up to our 1.5 million from the previous page. Across the top, you can see that there's ways to sort the data by date completed. And so this right now, you can click on any 1 year and it will show just that 1 year of data. And as you click on things, it automatically shifts to, this is now just 2021 locations and summary statistics up at the top. So that's just what we as a state completed in that 1 calendar year. You can also do it by land ownership. Again, we'll work out, write out some of these acronyms, but this is sort of how we got the data. So you can see what, you know, Bureau of Land Management did over that 30 years. This is sort of their summary to or 20 years and where it happened. So a lot of this does have city and county. This is where someone like the State Forest Service or potentially a federal agency, but almost always State Forest Service implemented something on state or on county land. So this is not what we were talking about earlier, Commissioner Church, of reported by La Plata County. This is just where it's already recorded in our state and federal databases. So that has room to grow. You can sort by counties. Should we do La Plata or Larimer? Which one? Which county commission? But so there it is, and I'll zoom in just on the county of all the activity that's tracked in that county. And then management types, canopy, fire, reforestation, and service. So if you just are interested in one. There are some summary information at the bottom. So canopy, and then we've broken the canopy into these different categories of mechanical management, manual management, mastication, which is a unique kind of machine that was worth breaking out, and then chemical, where people are spraying chemicals in order to remove or kill woody vegetation. So again, if you click on any one of these, it selects just that category automatically and changes the summary statistic at the top, so you can see geographically where it's happening, as well as numerically. And each of that happens for each of these categories at the bottom. Surface is piling of fuels, mulching, lop and scatter removal, right? Fire management, we have broadcast burning or pile burning separated, so you can tell what kind of fire management is happening. Those are very different activities. Excuse me. Reforestation, we're still working to refine this. The vast majority of reforestation is planting trees, and I think this number is going to go down. We're trying to err on the side of including data rather than excluding it. So right now there's more seeded activities included, but there's very little seeding of woody vegetation in Colorado. It's almost all planting of trees. And then we can do other things. And this is where I'm curious what other kind of summaries would be helpful. This is an annual summary, so you can kind of track these different categories. So the yellow, again, is fire management. The blue is reforestation. This is surface management. The majority of the acres reported are in that canopy management category. So you can see over the years how it's fluctuated. We can display this in different ways. We could do a graph by land ownership, by whatever else you're interested in. So that's sort of where we're at. Again, it's filtered by agency here. So if I just want to see what Colorado Parks and Wildlife reported, there it is. I'm going to reset that. And then it's dots when you're far out. As you zoom in, let's go somewhere, there's Winter Park, you can see it changes to polygons, right? So it's just a factor, and does that automatically. As you click on an individual project, individual information about that project pops up. So you can see this is classified as a canopy activity. The specific management activity within canopy was mechanical, the agency overseeing it, right? So all these other details. And then there is some other information. So project objective, right? That gets to the question that Commissioner Shattuck McNally was asking, why are we managing, what's our goal and objective? That is not systematically tracked at all across all these databases. And so it's really hard to tell why we're doing different kinds of management. We can tell what happened and when, but why and what was the intended outcome is really hard to decipher from the information that's provided. So when it's provided, we're just going to kind of put it in there verbatim. A lot of it is blank, and some of it is more useful than others. But that's just kind of some of the information that is available. Here's a Powell Burn one from the U.S. Forest Service. So you can see the kind of information that is there. So that's, imagine if the data is all perfect and fine, and this is public. That's where we're heading to, and it's exciting to be at this stage. I think I talked a lot. I'm going to pause for a second and ask Rebecca and Stephanie if there's anything that you want to add, and or please correct that I said that you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. Anything you want to jump in before we get to some questions and discussion with the rest of the council?
No, I think that covered most everything.
All right. I do want to mention, I don't know if it's in this view right now, but we have collected one of the federal agencies that reports is Bureau of Indian Affairs. So we do have some data that is within tribal jurisdiction, but that is an area that I'd love to continue connecting with Councilman White Skunk and continue working on how you're comfortable engaging in this project as well and connecting with other tribes in Colorado. So there's lots of different angles. We mentioned, a lot of the local counties and fire protection districts, others. There's lots of data holders and knowledge holders within Colorado that we hope to build over the months and years contributing to this. That's your orientation. All right. Let's open the floor. Comments, questions, discussion.
Yes, that's awesome. Very impressive, and I love the Zoom capability. Just wondering, one question and one comment. On the dot size representing an area, what's the minimum threshold for acreage there? Is it just, 5 acres would qualify for a dot? Or I see you're zooming in and some of these dots are very complex.
Yes.
Very large areas, multiple projects over multiple years.
So we did not set a minimum acreage size.
Oh,
So hopefully that's not your house, but and it's complicated. So this one says acres managed 534. That looks like something's off there because that polygon doesn't represent that. But we decided not to put a so what this is probably one report of 534 acres is a compilation of lots of different polygons that were implemented under one funding source, right?
okay.
Well, there's all kinds of complications that happen here. But this shows that yes, any size polygon on individual small areas, we're including it because it meets the criteria.
Very impressive. Thank you. The other comment I wanted to make is when you're ready, we have dinner with the Southern Ute Tribal Council, our Board of County Commissioners, quarterly, and clear a lot of issues up in that dinner meeting. And so when you're ready, I can get some contacts with the Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute. They do have foresters, so, and just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And we have had some initial conversations with Councilman White Skunk, but yeah, I think there's many people on our list to follow up with, and there are certainly some.
I would just like to add in there, in dealing with the Indian tribes, the Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute are sovereign nations. And they do appreciate being treated as such.
Mhm.
And with great respect and deference.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Church. I think those are great points, and I would echo those comments. This is, I'm geeking out. This is amazing and great data, and just really kind of a cool tool that's going to be, I think, we don't even maybe understand, as you stated earlier, the uses for this. As you stated, the CSU and some of the researchers are using this in lots of ways you hadn't thought about. So, and I just want to clarify. So first, that's my comment, just really well done and great work. And I want to clarify, you had stated this is only completed work, not work that's in process, correct?
Correct.
And so, and I know this, I probably know the answer to this, but you know, I always think about what's the audience who's looking at this, and you listed a whole bunch of people who are looking at this, right? And they're going to find the information they need. But on that front page, I'm assuming this is kind of the front page, we have members of the public and maybe the state legislature who may or may not have time to like drill down. But just I always think, especially for those who maybe don't understand what this means. For us, we understand what it means, but if we had another approximate number, I don't know if this is even possible, but to you know, talk about, and it depends on how much it costs to treat each acre, but approximate cost of what that costs. And you know, also maybe some comment about every acre that we treat, you know, says what 10%, 10 times the amount of suppression, and then we have, I mean, even triple that. We think, I haven't heard of a recent number of all the recovery costs that are associated. I can tell you our costs here in Larimer County have been astronomical since 2020, but I'm just curious if there was a range, or if what people thought, just kind of for the general public who might look at this, showing like, hey, this costs this much. Because, you know, for them, it's just no big deal to go out and just use chainsaws. Let's just go out and mulch. No big deal. It doesn't cost any money. But I think people need to also have kind of a 1.5 means millions and millions of dollars. And that's why we need to keep investing millions and millions of dollars into this work, even if it's not, there's no smoke in the air, because the scale and the scope and the risk does not change. Even if the money's not there, the urgency does not change. And so I think showing some of those numbers, even if it's not exact, we estimate, or whatever it is you're talking about, that sentence, that this cost from here to here, but this, we know this will save, you know, approximately 10 times in suppression and untold numbers in recovery. I don't know what you thought about that, but I just always think about who's looking at this. If I'm sharing it with my community, they need to understand the investment we need to make as a community and as a state, because it's needed now. We can't wait. No one's going to come and save us. And sometimes I feel like we have some great grants that are coming through, but I feel like we have to share people why local government, why all this money, why we all collectively pay taxes, and why we do this work together is because of this stuff. And this is what our protection of so much. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir and on my soapbox right now, but I think that's also something important, because people are aware of, they pay property taxes and they're also paying for insurance rates. Like mine went up $2,000 this last year because I live in the in the foothills. This is also a piece of that, and I don't know how we can share it or tell that part of the story, but I just don't know what you all thought about that. I just think also just giving some rough numbers just for people to kind of wake them up that this costs money. Thank you for letting me speak my piece.
Well, Commissioner, I think that leads to the next question of what's the job to be done, you know, from a mitigation standpoint to protect the WUI. There'll be, I mean, what we've been doing in the forest is strategic fire mitigation around, valued assets. Now we hope to finish that job and then expand that and protect the forest and make it healthier overall. So we need to eventually come back and address the maintenance level of work that needs to be done too. So I'll be quiet.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's why I wanted to present it, is your feedback on what numbers are important, where do you want to go with it.
Brent, you're breaking up on my end here. You hear that?
The cal-
I also can't hear Brett anymore, so.
Can you all hear me? I'm sorry. CSU Wi-Fi is off the rails today.
I can hear you, Katie.
Yeah, I hear you. It was Brett that I lost.
Okay, yeah, because my computer dropped the call and I haven't been able to get back in. So apologies for that, everyone.
Yes, I'm also at CSU, so I may disappear any moment, I suppose. But just to pick up where Brett left off, part of my role, along with Stephanie and other people that have been working on the forest tracker, will be to do some of these analyses to help put these numbers in context. So, Commissioner, I love the questions you were asking about investment and return on investment, and we need that kind of feedback from you guys, because I can build a statistical model, but of what? What am I modeling? And knowing what you guys are interested in learning from this data is something that's going to be really helpful for us. So I appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah,
Appreciate that, because when we're testifying in front of the state or making that, to our federal partners, or, hey, we need to make this a state mandate, or even if we're talking locally for a dedicated funding source, this is great information for us to have. That just like when we ran the behavioral health tax in 2018, I could say for every dollar you're investing in this, you're saving $6 to $10 from folks not going to the emergency room and sitting there and they can't pay and then come back out, and we had that kind of data to share. And so for every dollar we're investing here or this treatment, it's going to it costs this much dollar, every dollar, to treat, 10 inches. I'm just kidding, but I mean, and then how much does that save down the road? I think it's like 10% or 10 times 10 for every dollar is $10 in suppression. And I've heard up to 3, even 33 times that for recovery, because you have all the infrastructure and all those things. So I'm just curious about that. And I think it's something when we're trying to tell the story of why, we have multiple partners who need to know the why and the cost, and they're thinking about dollars. They're not worried. This stuff we all get and we geek out, but some of those people need to get that price tag kind of knocked upside their head. This is why we need to invest this now. So I appreciate it. I just had this conversation with another similar topic, and so it's just like, it feels like it's common theme, but it's really important, I think, with this work.
Sure.
Another aspect that we want to look at today is to see what overlays are helpful with the dashboard. So for example, the State Forest Service, we do a priority watershed assessment with the Forest Action Plan. Now, would including that be a helpful tool, or would that just be too much and cluttered? So having the feedback, I think Amy mentioned, like, there's a lot of interest in what's being treated in the watershed areas and the priority watershed areas. And so then calculating the metrics from that, not as hard. The money, I think, is that one's out of my jurisdiction, but so that's helpful feedback too, to figure out what questions and what overlays people find most useful with this information.
I think maybe Brett has joined us again via phone. Is
Yeah.
that right?
I think so.
I am back. Sorry, CSU Wi-Fi is struggling today. Both Katie and I have been kicked off and on and off. But yeah, this is a great conversation. I know we're coming up on time. I hear a lot of the questions and comments. Like I'm kind of joining now via Zoom, but I'll just stay on phone for a second. Hearing lots of the comments and questions about relating it to why and what are the outcomes and sort of dollar figures. I think that's all really valuable. One other thing that making this data transparent will also do is show a lot of activities that people are going to rightfully question of why are we investing there? What is the goal and objective? What is happening? You know, why are we doing any forest management in this area? But I think we have to, as a council, also take a balanced approach of not just beating the drum for more forest management, but to do forest management that makes a difference, right? And making sure we're always carrying that message. So I think that's some of the analysis hopefully we'll be able to draw forward to really show the value, like you've been talking about today, of where forest management really makes a difference for improving how we manage fires, but also improving other things. It's not, fire is the dominant narrative and dominant reason why we do forest management, but it's not the only reason why either. So I think that's where the forest tracker is trying to be a little broader in that sense. But hear you loud and clear. That's the first place people are going to go is how much more work do we need to do and what's it going to cost and what are the benefits? That's what we talked about as our forest tracker team a couple of days ago. And I said, I guarantee you that's the first thing people are going to ask. And I think it was, right? So I can't tell, it looks like Katie is back. You call in on this one?
Yes, I am back.
I
Yeah,
don't know
thanks
if
for
there's
holding down the fort for a minute there.
other questions or comments, or we want to move to wrapping up?
We are about out of time. Brett, I'm curious, at the full council meeting, you are going to discuss this even more. Do you feel like that's a good time to talk about the full council's involvement a little bit more, or do you think we need a little more time on the August agenda for this topic, or maybe both?
Probably both.
All right.
Might need to talk a little before then, but I think I would appreciate the council member, you know, everyone who's on the council on this call, think about, do we want to, you know, write a letter saying we will use the data to inform our decisions moving forward? Do we want to just say we generally support having transparent data? Do we want to, I think it's perfectly fine to also just let this be a project that is used by the council, but doesn't have to have some kind of official connection. But it could, for sure. And I think there's some value in that for the council as well as for forestry in general in Colorado.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, seeing that we are at time, I'll go ahead and add a little bit additional time on our August agenda, and please, everyone, feel free to follow up via email as well. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
Thank you. In a second, and I can't see anyone. All right.
This is Amy.
All in favor,
Aye.
say
Aye.
aye.
Hi.
All right. Any opposed? Thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing y'all later this month. Some of you in person, some of you virtually. Have a good rest of your week.